Hey guys, Tom here from Touchscreen, and today we're going to talk about one rule that was implemented during the transition into the modern era of touch football. And I want to discuss whether you believe that it saved touch football or it ruined touch football. So yeah, it's a bit of a controversial topic. Hopefully it can cause a bit of discussion in the comments. But before we get started, just remember I do appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. And I also have members only content that comes out usually once a fortnight for those who join as a member. So please either subscribe, become a member. I really appreciate that. Okay, but the rule we are talking about, and in particular this came into, and I'll show you some clip examples that came in when we became six-a-side, and then a couple of years later they introduced this rule. So this is the rule as it stands now. It's 10.13 in the 8th edition Australian rulebook. When a player from the defending team enters its defensive 7-metre zone, the defending team must move forward at a reasonable pace until a touch is imminent or made. So it's basically talking about the rule where you're defending your line, and while you're defending your line, you must move forward. You must be actively trying to make a touch, whether you're middle, link, wing, other side of the field, does not matter. Everyone needs to be moving forward, and now we have at a reasonable pace. So why did we bring in this rule? It seems a little bit different. A lot of people understand that, yes, we're trying to promote scoring tries in touch football, which promotes highlights, which promotes publicity, which is good for the game. Totally understand that, but why specifically force people a rule that makes it difficult to defend when everyone agrees it's defense that wins championships? That is the saying. Let's have a look. I've got a clip here. This is from the 90s, back when touch football was 7-a-side, and you can see that, I'll start playing it now, and you can see that before this rule became a thing, the game of touch football was very different. And in particular, the way that the teams attacked and defended the line. So as we can see, Australia, this is Australia versus New Zealand. This is not a club game. This is an international fixture. So this is the best of the best of the 90s. And let's watch what happens. Look at New Zealand defend the line here. They're about 1 metre or 2 metres out, and they're just holding. There's a touch, and they're holding again. And Australia try that late switch. But in particular, that's the shape that they got themselves into here. And they held. They held in that shape. And they would only move laterally. So before we talk about that, further down, we also have Australia doing something very similar. So again, late switch, dump very close to the line. Now watch Australia here. Again, they're holding. And they're still holding what then was the 5-metre line. They're just holding. Because there's no rule for them to move forward, they don't have to. And they believe that if they were to hold their ground as a defensive unit, they would be much more effective in stopping tries. So the wings creeping up. Okay, and that was the result of that rule not being existing. So what did that do? What did the game look like then? What did the attack look like then? Structure. There was structure back then, but it did rely on a lot of eyes up. Now you saw a couple of those, like this one from Australia here. Their first try came from a late switch, and a late switch was very prominent back then because it's very effective to do against like a man-on style defense. So there was a lot of late switch, double switch, triple switch, that stuff like that, where you just completely drag one defender over and then turn a player under. You will get the overlap if you do it correctly. So that was the whole way of scoring tries, which I would actually agree that it's great to watch like that. The ad-lib style of touch football, the unpredictability was great for the game as far as a spectacle goes. But as you can see at this frame here, that's actually quite bad defense. So it didn't take long for defensive, like that player being really too wide, it didn't take long for him to cover that space. And it actually became, one, very difficult to score tries. the best way to score a try was to gain momentum with your rucking and then capitalise at the end with the defence on the back foot. And what happened out of that? Well, you would see tap-offs in the 90s, and this is when it became six-a-side too. They didn't change this rule straight away. You would see tap-offs in the 90s where one team would literally stand back in their own 5 metre zone or about 3 metres off the line, because that way they couldn't generate that momentum for a dummy half to run through the middle or something like that. They were already onside. So it got a bit weird where now in recent times you see that rolling tactic. Well, these guys didn't even roll. They would just start back on their line because line defense was their most confident way of defending. And that just looked, and that part of it just didn't look good. So to promote more tries and to stop that sort of stuff, to emphasize the midfield of touch football, I believe it was the 7th edition introduced in 2000 that they introduced the rule where you must move forward to make a touch. And from the 7th to 8th edition, it didn't actually have reasonable speed. Now it's got reasonable speed, but people would literally almost walk on the spot. They would move at the slowest speed possible because technically they are still advancing, even though they had no intention of making a touch. Now, that didn't look good either. So they've introduced reasonable pace. Now, does it make it harder to defend? Yes, it really does. Especially if you're trying to do some form of eye defense, or you're trying to do a high link up making touches, and anyone that you want to try and hold back on the line. It does make it much more difficult. In attack, it makes it so much more easier in attack, but what it does drive is structure, and some people don't like the amount of structure that's in the game today because of that. If you are someone that likes the whole unpredictability and the ad-lib play, the off-the-cuff style, I guess you could say, of the late switching and the flick passes and things like that, that was prominent in the 90s. Let me know if that's what you would prefer, because like me personally, I like the game as it is now, but I would like to see an exhibition game of like, how do I explain it? Like a veterans game or a masters game where you bring back some players that were prominent in the 90s, even if they still don't play anymore, and have an Australia versus New Zealand or a New South Wales, Queensland, or some form of international, like you can do it in Europe, you can do it wherever you want in Asia. Have the rules and get rid of that rule and just see what it's like. See if it becomes better to watch or not. Because like I think there is ups and downs to both. Me personally, like I said, if I had to pick one, I would pick the rule as it is today. It does make the game extremely fast, and you saw, like, I'm going to go back to like this whole passage here where the game actually came to a complete stop. And if you listen to the commentary on this, the commentators even say that Australia have brought the game to a standstill. Now this sequence just looks like the game has stopped and he's about to take a tap because there's a penalty or something like that happened. But this is actual game. This is part of the game. Clock is ticking. Ball is in play here. And I think that's what they were trying to get rid of. They didn't want that whole... They wanted to promote touch as a fast game for fast-paced agility. And then when you were repeatedly seeing moments like this, it was just kind of a bit of a downer. So to get rid of that, I'm totally for it. But like I said, let me know what you think about this specific rule, because whilst it's only one rule, it has a massive impact on the way that the game was played. So yeah, feel free to let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, we have members content as well. Really appreciate all the support you have brought to the channel, and we'll see you next time, or we'll see you at Touch Footy.